Hi, this is Lee, and today I'm going to be speaking about how to find the leverage point or the hit point or the bullet. This is something that I struggled with for a lot of years, and it actually showed itself by having no power pocket. No matter what I did, my power pocket would scrunch up or it was ugly, and moving your elbow is no way to fix it for me. Before you go through this tutorial, I do think it's a prerequisite to have gone through the method. Because of that, the method will show you how to get into this framed position and how to generate some force from the ground up. I think that's a very important thing to be able to feel before you do this. The method teaches you how to sling your arm from your hips. This shows you how to direct that force into a very specific point and swing through it. The other thing I think you should have is some sort of a lever or hammer. This is a rubber mallet. It weighs about 1.5 times the amount of a disc. Any sort of light mallet will do, ideally plastic or rubber so you don't hit yourself in the chest. Please don't use a claw head hammer. You can use a small wrench, you can use a wood dowel, but just something that's, about the length of a disc that'll make you feel that leverage point. I think it's hugely helpful for actually feeling this transition to a disc. Step 1 is to get into what we call the frame position of the method. So that will be standing one-legged on your plant leg. The easiest way for me is to just walk forward, and when you get to your plant foot, stop. You'll know you're in balance because you can just lift up your other foot, you can talk, you can do whatever, and you feel in balance. And I like walking into it because you shut off your brain and use the balance you're used to every day, and suddenly you're just on one leg. Now let your back foot just dangle on the ground. So I'll get back into that position, just step forward, stop on my plant foot. And your back foot can be anywhere, honestly. It's a little bit behind me. It's got some weight on the ground, but it's not supporting my weight. I can just lift it up at any point. Just don't lean into it. Okay, so I'm in this position. My head is over my plant foot. My back leg isn't supporting any balance. And now what I want you to do is reach out at a 45-degree angle with your throwing arm. So this is perfectly sideways. This is 90 degrees. I'm calling this 45. I know it's 135, but we're just gonna call it 45 here. Okay, one leg, throwing arm out at 45 degrees. Next step, tilt your palm downwards. And this is really important. When you tilt your palm downwards, don't do this by turning your wrist. Do this by turning your shoulder. You'll see the difference with how my elbow moves. If I turn my wrist, my elbow doesn't do anything. If I turn my shoulder, my elbow moves outwards. What this allows me to do is now when I bend my elbow, all that's happening is my hand or my lever comes straight into my sternum. So you can reset, step forwards, balanced on one leg, arm out at a 45-degree angle, turn at your shoulders so your elbow's out, and now your elbow comes inwards. This is step 1 of building this drill. Next step, and these things will feed together, but you can now be balanced on 2 feet and just feel athletic. So you can just pop up and down a little bit, just feel like you're balanced evenly between your feet. And now what I want you to do is turn your hips forwards and backwards. I'm doing this with my hands on my hips just to show that when I turn my hips about 45 degrees backwards and 45 degrees forwards, my shoulders turn with them. I'm not turning my shoulders, I'm turning my hips, which turn my shoulders with them. So feel how this feels to just turn your hips a little bit, both directions. Now what we're going to do is feed these two things together. So, starting out on one leg, I have my lever, arm out at 45 degrees, palm down with my shoulder. As I bring my elbow in, I'm going to turn my hips back 45 degrees, and I'm going to turn them forward while I'm opening my elbow. Watch that there's nothing I'm doing with my shoulder. I'm not swinging my shoulder. I'm not elbowing anything by opening my shoulder. All I'm doing is opening my forearm. So again, here's the starting point with my elbow out from turning my palm down from my shoulder. Turn away, bring your elbow in, turn out, bring your elbow out. This is probably going to feel nothing like a throw. If you're very lucky, you might feel a leverage point out here. But for most people, we're going to go find some sort of immovable object like a wall or a tree and figure out how to actually feel that leverage point in a much better way. All right, so what I need you to do now is find some sort of an immovable object, like a tree or a wall or a door frame, something that you can really lean into and press against without damaging it. So I'm going to find a spot where I can walk up in this frame position from this tree, have my arm out in this 45-degree angle with my palm pointed down, and I'm going to contact the tree somewhere between armpit and belly button height. I like right where my rib cage meets together. For me, it's about 1.5 feet away from a wall or a tree. I've measured it out. For me at 5'10", it's about 17, 18 inches. So that's a good guideline. So keep in mind also, at any point, you should be able to lift your back foot off the ground to show that you're in balance. So 45-degree arm, palm down, you either karate chop or a closed fist. And what I want you to do is just press against this tree. Feel what muscles engage. And for me, it's the tricep, the bicep a bit, and my shoulder. It feels somewhat weak and only my arm is working. Again, my back foot can be lifted at any point. What I'm gonna do is just, while I'm pushing against this tree, is rotate my hips forward a little bit. Right now, all of a sudden I feel everything change. I feel my quad engage, my glutes engage, and my core all of a sudden really tightens up. And I feel like I can push from the ground through my leg, through my core, and into the tree. I'm still balanced on one foot. I can lift this back foot off the ground, but I can just really push into the tree. If I turn back away, I suddenly lose that feeling and only my arm is engaged. So try resetting. Get back on one leg, arm against the tree, push really hard, and then turn forward until everything engages, and you'll know when you're doing it right. At this point, burn this into your mind. Think about where your hips are on your shoulders and where you feel strong. You can grab your lever, back away from that tree or wall, and get back into that exact same position where you were the strongest. This is where you can just smash through the tree, smash through the wall, and this is exactly where you're gonna hammer through something. My foot's open a little bit. Do whatever you want with your foot so you feel safe, but the key is that I'm leading with my hips, and my shoulders are closed compared to the hips, and that's what's providing me with all of this leverage. This is where you're feeling that bullet. This is where you're feeling that hit point. It's a very distinct place in space where you're directing all of that leverage through it. And again, it feels like you get to this tree in a strong manner, not a quick manner where your hand's gonna shatter, but a strong way where you feel like you can just press right through it. Okay, so you felt exactly where you can exert force on the tree right here. You're feeling the strength, you're feeling your quads and your abs tense up, and you're feeling exactly where you can push right through it. What I want you to do is remember exactly where this point is, where you feel the complete strongest feeling, all connected through the ground. And remember, I can lift my back foot off the ground. I'm balanced on one foot right now. Grab your lever and feel how you would just punch through that tree or that wall. So you're getting into this really strong position, and I have leverage. And if you don't feel this lever, go back to the tree, feel exactly how to lean into it, and just back up a foot or two, and then imagine exactly what you were doing with that hammer in your hand. So now that you can feel this leverage point with some sort of a lever or a hammer, which has an end weight, it's time to see how to recreate that with a disc that's symmetrically weighted. The way I like to do this is, first of all, by using a transition drill, hold the disc vertical with the flight plate facing towards the back of the T-pad. And you're just gonna grab it in the middle of your hand with your fingers splayed out on the bottom and your thumb on top. Nothing like a disc golf grip. What this is gonna let you do with a really loose wrist is feel how to fan the disc outwards and just pop it outwards, and you can hear it whooshing the air. It's very sudden and there's a bit of wind resistance. If you do it wrong, the disc will kind of drag all around your body, whereas when you feel this leverage point correctly, it's a very distinct place in front of your body. Once you can feel that, it's time to get the disc flat and feel how to actually leverage the wing of the disc. To do this, I like to hold the disc pinched between my index finger and my thumb so that you can actually feel it kind of sling and rotate. And at this point, do this outside. Don't do this around anyone. It might pop out of your hand even if you're not meaning to throw it. So with this really loose grip, moving at like 20% speed, feel that leverage point, and you should just feel it want to sling around your thumb and your index finger. If you can feel it pop in one instant, you know you're feeling that leverage point correctly. When you're ready to try this on the field, I would recommend starting with some small upshots, somewhere around 150 to 220 feet. Something where you can throw a putter or a mid-range and you don't need to worry at all about the power you're putting in, but it's still far enough that it's a real throw and not something where you're really just fluffing an upshot, basically. Okay, so now when you're ready to try this on the course for the first time, I really recommend not just blasting at full power. It's really hard to feel this if you're going as hard as you can, and if you never feel it in the first place, you won't know if you're doing it right. So I suggest finding some place where you're comfortable, 150 feet to 200 feet to a basket, something where it's short enough that you don't think about power at all, but it's far enough that you actually have to have an actual throw. So right here, I'm about 175 feet away from a basket, and I'm just gonna use it as an aim point in the distance. I'm not trying to approach it and settle at the pole. I'm pretending that I'm playing catch with the chains. And what I'm going to do is feel this leverage point that I was talking about. Feel exactly the body position I'm gonna be in. And now I'm just turning my body until I feel it aim at the chains. Once I've felt this zone, I'm imagining the line at the chains. I'm just gonna step away and come back to that spot. Just a little bit of a step. That's all I need here. Pretty good. When I'm trying to throw these crisp shots at the basket, what I'm focusing on is that leverage point. I want to be aiming downfield and feel exactly where the tail end of the disc slings around my fingers, and that's the aim point. That's the arc that the disc wants to go on. Aim that arc where it wants to be. You might have to reposition your feet or reposition your shoulders, but feel exactly where that arc is, and then you can step away and go right through that arc again. It's almost like you're teeing up a baseball at the end of the tee pad, or you have a golf ball on a tee, and there's one specific point that you're gonna swing through. That's what I'm feeling when I'm aiming. I feel where the disc wants to go, and I imagine that place in space where it's teed up, and then I go right back to that point. So that feels crisp, and it's so easy to throw on line. I'll try another. So that one right there is what you actually want to see. I felt like I threw it as hard as the shot before, and it went way over the basket. That means that I hit it correctly. When you surprise yourself and the disc went, I don't know, 30 feet farther than you thought it was going to go, you're on the right track. So that's why I think this range is a good place to start. Try to aim at the basket. Once you start surprising yourself with the leverage, you know you're onto the right thing, and then keep following that pathway. All right, well, hopefully you've been able to actually feel this pop some shots, even if they're at low range, and see some flights that kept carrying a little farther than you intended to throw. If that's the case, you know you're on the right track. Keep playing around with that feeling, and you can always add a little bit of effort throughout the day or on different sessions. Once you lose that feeling, go back to feeling exactly where you can leverage the disc, feel how to hit it right, and you can always increase the power over time. There's no sense adding momentum if you've lost that leverage point, because you'll know how easy it feels when you're doing it right. So good luck with that. Thanks for following.